Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies isn't just what we sing when we pop on Fleetwood Mac's excellent Tango in the Night, but also what we say to ourselves anytime we press play on a WWE produced documentary. They say that history is written by the winners, and because WWE always wins, they always get to write the history. Most of it is harmless guff and something to poke fun at. Can't believe they said that in a documentary, etc. But sometimes it's, I cannot believe they said that in a documentary, that's a lie. Most of the lies aren't even that hard to spot because we saw what actually happened with our own eyes, but that won't stop WWE from telling us what really happened. And since WWE stopped producing these documentary DVDs, they've just asked Bruce Pritchard to do it on his podcast, LOL. I'm Luke Owen, hailing from partsFUNknown, and these are 10 times that WWE lied to us in documentaries. And if you don't want to get caught out in a lie, why not hit that subscribe button? Love you. Number 10, Hulk Hogan didn't know if Andre the Giant would cooperate at WrestleMania 3. This is one of the oldest lies ever told in wrestling, but it wasn't until the HBO documentary centered on Andre the Giant that many fans learned of it from the mouth of one of wrestling's biggest liars, Hulk Hogan. The story that Hogan told was that heading into his famous match with Andre at WrestleMania 3, he was not sure that his opponent would follow the script. On the day of the event, Andre just calmly played cards and told Hogan, "Don't worry about it." But of course, the paranoid immortal one went into the biggest match of his career not knowing if the Giant would let him slam the big man. The problem is that only Hulk has ever told this story and provided the details, and it's Hulk Hogan, so yeah. Remember that time that Hogan said he worked nearly 400 days a year, or that he was supposed to be the face of the George Foreman grill, or that he was going to be the bass player for Metallica? Hogan's full of shit sometimes. Number 9, Mania attendance figures. Speaking of WrestleMania 3, this one started WWE's greatest tradition, lying about Mania attendance figures, and honestly, I'm not sure why. Have you heard Bruce Pritchard defend this on his podcast of bullshit? It's incredible. According to the company, 93,173 fans packed the Pontiac Silverdome in Detroit for the most attended event in wrestling history. It wasn't. However, in actuality, 78,000 fans filled the stadium. That's still a really good number, guys, but shh, don't let facts muddy the narrative you want to create. Since then, WWE has consistently lied about the attendance figures for the Showcase of the Immortals in several documentaries centered around the event. Whether it's counting every single person in the building, including staff or backstage personnel, the promotion has hit attendance records in somewhat dubious ways. One of the biggest lies came at WrestleMania 32 when they broke the Mania 3 record with 101,763 fans. The actual attendance was 93,730 fans, which is still a great number, guys! And even Vince McMahon would later on admit that there was not 101,000 fans in the building who paid. Number 8, the Montreal Screwjob. One of the most controversial talking points of WWE over the years has been the Montreal Screwjob. It's been discussed and covered ad nauseum in various documentaries, whether it was Bret the Hitman Hart, the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be, or the Shawn Michaels story, Heartbreak and Triumph, or, let's be honest, 30 billion other documentaries made by WWE. Now, I'm not going to talk about Scott Hall or Kevin Nash thinking the whole thing was a work, brother. I'm instead going to look at the biggest lie WWE has ever told about the Screwjob. That Bret Hart was going to appear on WCW Nitro the night after Survivor Series, so Vince had no other choice but to get the belt off of him in order to protect the WWF Championship. This is a lie. Do you know how it's a lie? Bret didn't show up on Nitro the day after Survivor Series! And that is because, dear viewer, Bret's contract with the WWF wasn't up until a few weeks after Survivor Series. It didn't expire until the middle of December. This is why Bret maintained that he would drop the gold to anyone but Shawn Michaels after Survivor Series. He even said he would surrender the title to Vince the next night on Raw. But you know, Bret screwed Bret, everyone. Nothing to see here. This lie has become ingrained in the company. Fun fact, when WWE didn't put out the self-destruction of the Hitman DVD that they did have planned, and instead put out the more favourable one with Bret involved, Shane McMahon told Bret's assistant at the time that he was glad they could work together, but noted that his father had no other option but to screw Bret because he'd be on Nitro the following day. That's not a DVD thing. That's just what Shane has been told and therefore believes. Even when the assistant corrected him and told him the truth, Shane was far too indoctrinated into WWE's religion and their version of events. Number 7, Kurt Angle's WWE departure was all on him and not on the company. Kurt Angle is one of the greatest in-ring performers to ever step foot in a WWE ring. Olympic gold medalist, multi-time world champion, countless classic matches. However, in 2006, Angle's body was starting to fall apart, thanks in part to the rigorous WWE touring schedule, and he broke his neck on a few occasions and became addicted to painkillers in a bid to continue wrestling. The real story here is that WWE wanted the Olympic gold medalist to enter rehab for his painkiller addiction, but Angle refused, being angry at himself and with the company for its booking being shifted to WWE ECW to be that brand's frontman, which led to his release. Many thought he would go to UFC and start his MMA career, but instead, Angle made the jump to TNA in one of the most shocking defections in wrestling history. In WWE's revisionist history, however, it was 100% on Kurt Angle leaving the promotion with no fault on them at all. Of course, Angle has since taken some responsibility for where the addiction took him, but WWE's general lack of accountability is questionable. Number 6, WrestleMania 7 moved because of bomb threats. Another entry to file under the most notorious lies about WrestleMania is the story behind the 7th edition of the event. Mania 7 was supposed to be the huge rematch between Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior after the historic Ultimate Clash challenge at WrestleMania 6 in Toronto Skydome. The two top stars were expected to pack the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, which holds over 100,000 fans. However, Warrior failed to fill the big shoes of the Hulkster as a top babyface for the company, and he was shifted into a program with Macho Man Randy Savage. In a reactionary move, the company turned career babyface Sergeant Slaughter into a dastardly Iraqi sympathizer at the time of the Gulf War to face the all-American hero Hulk Hogan. This wasn't what fans expected or wanted, so as a result, ticket sales for the event were extremely poor and caused WWE to move the event to the smaller LA Memorial Sports Arena, holding just 16,000 seats. Instead of shooting commercials to talk about the move to a more intimate setting for the show, WWE said that bomb threats due to Slaughter's gimmick forced the move. This lie can be seen on the Story of WrestleMania documentary and others throughout the years. Number 5, the self-destruction of the Ultimate Warrior, the whole thing. The Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior is one of the most fascinating DVDs ever released by WWE. I've watched it hundreds of times and find something new in it in each and every watch. But no mistaking, this is not a documentary. This is a smear campaign against Warrior, and an example of WWE using revisionist history to lessen contributions of people they don't like. Every scene, every interview, every clip chosen is designed to make Ultimate Warrior look like an ignorant, talentless hack who didn't do anything for WWF. Hogan at one point says that at the end of Mania 6, no one was looking at Warrior in the ring, they were watching Hogan leave. This simply isn't true. I've got eyes and I can see the place come unglued when Warrior wins. The interesting thing is that what the documentary does get right is that Warrior was not a perfect human being who said some pretty controversial and outrageous things. But after he came back into the company shortly before his death, WWE swept all of that under the rug and pretended he was a perfect human being who didn't say outrageous shit all the time. The biggest case of this being a hit piece as opposed to the truth is that WWE had planned to do the exact same thing to Bret Hart. In 2005, they had planned to release the self-destruction of the Hitman and even film talking heads burying Bret, including Hulk Hogan, of course, and Roddy Piper, but changed their minds when Bret approached them to negotiate a different DVD, which resulted in the release of the praising Bret the Hitman Hart, the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. The moral of this story is that if WWE don't like you, you'll be buried and downplayed and outright lied about, but if you come back into the fold, you're a prodigal son that has returned. Right, Cody? Number 4, DX's role in the Monday Night War. I'm not going to downplay the popularity of D-Generation X as they are one of the most important stables in WWE, but their legacy in the Attitude Era is slightly overplayed. In the Monday Night War documentary series, for example, DX is talked about in glowing light for their entertainment factor and placed them on the same level, if not greater, than the New World Order in WCW. The company always brings up the invasion of WCW as this groundbreaking segment that shifted the fans in WWE's direction and helped them win the war. However, those who actually lived through the era will tell you it was just a cool segment on Raw, and it was Steve Austin and his feud with Vince McMahon, combined with the rise of Rock and the guys like Mankind and Undertaker being on top. Mankind winning the title in 1999 being an actual example of viewers switching over to WWF from WCW were actual pivotal parts of the Attitude Era. Triple H and HBK have even said in documentaries and in books that the Attitude Era was their idea. It should be noted that Shawn Michaels was not present for most of the Attitude Era, and Triple H's time on top during that period was away from DX and in the McMahon-Helmsley regime, which just so happened to have DX members in it. This narrative that DX were the architects of the Attitude Era when they weren't, perhaps coincidentally started to be parroted by the company in 2006 when, oh yeah, DX reformed as a tag team. Wasn't Steve Austin, it wasn't The Rock, it wasn't Mankind, it wasn't Taker, it was Triple H and Shawn Michaels, a team that were together for less than a year. No, really, they formed in August 97 and Michaels was gone by March of 98. The second iteration didn't last much longer, the NWO, they were not. Number 3. WCW folded because WWF beat them. Speaking of WCW and WWE's retelling of their demise, if you purely got your history from Vince & Co., you'd be convinced that WCW folded solely due to WWF's Attitude Era and their dominance in the ratings. However, the truth goes well beyond WWF beating them in quality or television viewership. Of course, WWF was a huge factor, but the company has made fans believe that the merger of AOL and Time Warner had absolutely nothing to do with WCW closing. However, the merger played a large part, if not the biggest part, in leading to the sale of the promotion. Ted Turner was a big supporter of professional wrestling on Turner Television, and the America Online merger with Time Warner led to those in power, namely Jamie Kellner, deeming WCW to not be in line with the television division's image. Kellner felt that wrestling in general was not favorable enough to get the right advertisers to buy airtime, and so he cancelled it. This is documented correctly in Brian Alvarez's brilliant Death of WCW book. The cancellation of WCW programming left the WWE free to acquire the trademarks, video libraries, and some contracts for a total of $4.2 million. None of this would have been possible without that merger. Number 2, 316 sparked the rise of Stone Cold Steve Austin. There are dozens and dozens and hundreds of documentaries that have claimed this. The Austin 316 promo at King of the Ring 96 was one of the defining moments that helped launch the career of Stone Cold Steve Austin and the Attitude Era in general. In actuality, no. Despite the promo being incredibly important to Stone Cold's rise, it did take Vince McMahon quite some time to realize that he had a star on his hands. There was no immediate 316 merchandise in the summer of 96, nor was Stone Cold viewed as the guy following his win at the tournament. Steve Austin wasn't even on the main card for SummerSlam, that was just 2 months later. It wasn't until Steve Austin was put into a program with Bret Hart leading into Survivor Series that Austin's rise truly began. Of course, that would paint Hart in a light that shows he helped elevate this leading force that sparked the Attitude Era, and WWE simply cannot have that, you understand. And while I'm here, Bret Hart vs Austin at WrestleMania is not a double turn. Bret was already cutting heel promos before that match, and the fans had decided that Austin was a babyface. Let's stop peddling that lie. And number 1, getting the F out. WWE had an impossible task on their hands with the Ruthless Aggression series. They had to present a huge downturn in business and ratings as a positive and good thing that was great for business and ratings. The whole series is littered with lies, whether it being Bruce Pritchard blaming fans for not being patient enough, the diminishing of Chris Jericho's involvement because he just signed with AEW, the whole took his ball and went home shtick, the belief that it was actually WCW's fault that the WCW invasion didn't work because those pesky contracts were too expensive to buy out. They don't even mention ECW in all of this. The whole thing just stinks of revisionist history written by petty people. The biggest lie told in the series, though, is that WWF changing their name to WWE was a Vince McMahon choice because he wanted to move the brand in a new direction. Of course, it had nothing to do with the fact they had been sued and lost to the World Wildlife Fund, the WWF here in the UK, which was a lawsuit that had been going on for years. The WWF, Panda ones that is, won their case against Vince & Co, and because WWE had fought it for so long, they had less than a week to implement all the changes. If you want to hear some truth about the name change, when Vince said that the WWF, the Panda ones that is, suit was without merit, the judge called WWE's legal arguments, quote, hopeless and, quote, astonishingly poor. When they argued that it was going to cost them over $50 million to make all of the changes, the judge said, and I quote, the cost of rebranding now, after some 5 years of development, are entirely attributable to WWE's own decision to take that risk. So yeah, go back and watch that documentary and watch Bruce Pritchard fall over himself to tell you that it was nothing but Vince McMahon genius. Absolute twaddle. And that's our list. No lies were found here, and no lies are found on our other list, which you can go and watch by clicking them on screen right now. I've been Luke Owen. Jam that jam.